A few months later in May, found out that my cousin Brent passed away. The thing that I did end up winning was his Trek Madone road bike.
Hey, I'm Sam, and this is The Phoenix Table. Raw stories from the fire for people rising out of the messy middle. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, pull up a chair, and join us, because we all rise better together. Travis, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for jumping in today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, Sam.
We talked about a really interesting journey that you recently took, and I wanted to get a deeper insight into the backstory, your inspiration, and just learn more about this cross-country jaunt. I don't want to give anything away, but for people listening, where would you like to start with your story today?
The ride itself, to just kind of describe that a little bit, was over 2,500 miles. And I did it this past summer from June 12th until August 3rd. And I rode from where I live now in Spokane, Washington, to Indianapolis, Indiana, close to where I grew up. I could have gotten there going a shorter way. I kind of took the long way to rack up 2,500 miles, but it was well worth it. And it was an amazing experience that I'll always have to look back on. And kind of how it came about is in 2023 and 2024, I was going through a bit of a depression. Some things that happened at the beginning of that year. My parents had gotten a divorce after over 45 years of being married. That was the first thing that kind of hit me, and that kind of triggered the depression to start. And then that was in January that I found out about that. And then a few months later in May, found out that my cousin Brent passed away from a heart condition, kind of out of the blue. He was only 52 years old. We grew up close to each other, about 5 miles apart from each other. He's 5 years older than me, kind of the big brother I never had because I was the oldest in my family. And that really, really hit me hard. And so that just kind of sent me down into a depression that I had never really felt before. I mean, I'd had times kind of in and out of, feeling down and stuff like that, and especially when I first moved to Seattle back in 2006. But this was unlike anything I had gone through before. And I had never been to a point where I felt like I needed medication or needed to talk with anybody or go through therapy or anything like that. And this time I did. I knew something was off and it was not going away. I'm someone who wakes up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning eagerly and come down to my desk to write, to read, to just kind of have my time for a few hours before the kids wake up and craziness begins.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't wanting to get out of bed, I knew something was up, because I usually get a little chippy if I wake up and it's 5:30. I'm like, man, I lost an hour of my day. So I knew something was up. So went to a doctor, ended up getting some medication, and it helped. I feel like it made me kind of too numb to things. Now I'm not on anything. And really kind of what happened with that and how I was able to kind of get over it was also the catalyst for the ride. And so last August in 2024, I was feeling better, but still struggling with things. I went back to Indianapolis for a fundraiser that my cousin Julie, Brent's sister, was holding to raise money for a scholarship fund that was created in his name. And part of that was a silent auction, and a lot of the things in the silent auction were things that were Brent's. I didn't realize how many pairs of sunglasses he had, but there were a lot. I bid it on a couple of those, didn't get them. But the thing that I did end up winning, and my wife doesn't like me to use the term winning because I bought it and so I paid for it, and that was his Trek Madone road bike. And just a year before, I had bought a road bike because mine got stolen, and Then never bought another one for almost, man, 8 years probably, after I used to ride all the time, and then kids happened and life happened, and finally decided, I need to get back to something that I enjoy, after kind of going through this situation. And so I bought a bike, but I bought it in the fall, didn't ride it, and then rode it once, I think that next spring, before I ended up getting Brent's bike. And he was an avid cyclist. He would fly to Paris for the Tour de France, fly to France for the tour, and would actually ride behind the tour, because I guess after they do that course for the day, you can go and ride the course yourself. And he would
That's
do that.
cool.
And he took this bike with him one year to do that. And then he decided, I'll just rent a bike because it's too much hassle to fly a bike over there. But this bike he did take with him one time. And I knew it was a special bike for him. And so when I had a chance to get it myself, it kind of lit a spark. And when I won it and I had it, kind of in that moment that night, I had just decided then on the spot, like, hey, I'm going to ride this bike back here to Indy next summer. And everybody thought I was crazy, and they're, like, probably thought I had too many margaritas that night, and maybe I had, but the next morning, and kind of an emotional time, and when you do have a few margaritas, you might say some things that you, the next day, you're like, why did I say that? There's no way I'm doing that, but the next morning I woke up and was even more determined, even more stoked to do this thing. And when I came back to Spokane with the bike and got on it for the first time, I knew, like, I've got to do something big to honor Brent. And so at that point started training and thinking more about it and planning and getting this kind of newfound purpose and meaning instantly killed the depression. Like, it was gone.
Wow.
And after a few months of finally feeling good again and feeling excited about this purpose, it really made me think about the connection of purpose and meaning in our lives,
Hmm.
and its impact on our mental health. And for a long time, I had wanted to do more meaningful work. I mean, I like RevOps, but it's easier to wake up every day when there's like something that you're doing that will help the world be
Sure.
a better place, besides just helping someone else's company make more money and be better. And so I'd always been kind of thinking, what could I do? And I thought about starting a nonprofit before, but never really kind of had. And then as I was thinking, and thinking about my kids, and one of the things that I've worried about since they were born is just the world they're growing up in, how different it is, all of the different kind of threats to their mental health that they're
Hmm.
experiencing that was never there, when
Sure.
we were kids, and
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and that's always worried me, because I know that it's been tough as an adult to be
Mhm.
resilient and get through the ups and downs, and even harder for kids, and so that worried me, seeing these trends of impacts to youth and teen mental health. And so in that moment, I thought, you know what, like, I just found this connection between purpose and mental health. And if it could do this for me, maybe it could work for kids and teens. And so I decided to kind of create a nonprofit called Cycling on Purpose and kind of roll it into this ride. Thought, man, what a better opportunity than to use a ride like this to raise awareness for youth mental health, be able to talk to people in different communities as I ride across the country, and use
Yeah.
it as a kind of a keystone event to raise money and get the nonprofit kind of off the ground and running. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how it all got started, how the nonprofit came to be, how the ride came to be. And yeah, now I'm in the process of developing programs for the nonprofit. And
Nice.
next week, actually doing our first official program, which is a bike bus here, a little town of Liberty Lake, Washington. So
What is that? What's a bike bus?
it's really a group of kids that will ride their bikes together to school,
Ah, okay.
and you pick a route. And
Yeah.
so we're starting in a park, and it's probably about a mile away from the school. And then we've got a planned route. There's pretty much a nice path system that could take us pretty much all the way to the school. As we go past different neighborhoods, we'll have a stop, and any kids that want to join, just like on a bus stop, can join. And then we just keep going and picking up more kids, and then do the same thing on the way back. And so
Very
right now,
neat.
I think we've got about 12 kids signed up for it, and several parent volunteers. And I've rigged a speaker on my on my bike, and I'll be at the
Fun.
front blasting some music for the kids, and just kind of make it a fun way to get to school in the
Oh,
morning.
it's so fun. So 2,500 miles from Seattle to Indianapolis. Is that right?
Mhm. Yep.
What was the logic behind how you got from Seattle to Indianapolis? And also wondering about some challenges too, because I myself, I'm not a cycler, and I'm sure there's lots of people listening to this that have never ridden a bike like that
Mm.
before. And so I'm curious, tell us a little bit more about the path that you took, what you did along the way, but also like just the overall challenges that you've had to overcome while you were trying to get from one place to another.
I had a friend here in Spokane who told me about an organization. And so Adventure Cycling is the name of the organization. It's a nonprofit in Missoula, and their whole mission is to really help people get out on bikes and do rides like this across the country, Pacific Coast Trail
Wow.
type of rides, like all over. And if you look at the maps on their website, it's just, spider web of all these trails and routes to get to anywhere you want to go. And they've all been ridden by someone within the organization or who has connections to the organization. And so the routes are kind of vetted for trying to avoid heavy traffic, trying to
Mhm.
ensure good road conditions
So
and decent,
safety.
safety, decent shoulders, right? But also scenic. And so this is an example. I don't know, people in the podcast won't be able to see, but it's a paper map. I also have the digital files. And so this one that I showed you is called the Northern Tier Route, and it goes from Anacortes, Washington to Bar Harbor, Maine. And it's one of their
Mhm.
cross country routes. And I had to stitch together 8 different routes to
Wow.
get from Missoula to Indy, which is only like a 2-hour drive by car, 4 days by bike. um, and I had to come up with my own route for that, which was fun. We've got some really good trails, but it was kind of tricky because I had to kind of make those up. And, having only driven the freeway to get there, that's the only way I knew
Right.
to get there. So had to kind of look at some roads, and I used Ride with GPS, kind of map it out, and it will
Oh,
show like
nice.
what's paved, what's unpaved. And so got a pretty decent feel. I think the hardest thing was trying to gauge how far I could go each day,
Yeah, sure.
um, without having ever done anything like this before. And prior to this ride, the furthest I had ridden was 50 miles in a day, and that was actually the September before. It was the
Oh,
first time I
wow.
had ridden that far.
And what did you average on this trip per day?
I was averaging probably in the 60s, 60 miles plus a
Wow.
day. I would ride for 6 days and rest a
Okay.
day and 6 days on. The
Wow.
last 2 weeks were 7 days on, with the rest in between. Um, so that the final stretch was tough. Even though it got significantly flatter, there were a lot of other elements that made it challenging
Mhm.
down the stretch. And it kind of varied. The amount of miles I did varied a lot by the terrain. And I would try to kind of estimate, like, there's a huge climb. It's not probably not going to be a 60, 70 mile day. I might try to go for 45, 50 because of the climbs and the elevation gains and things like that. There was a lot of just kind of iterations and adjustments every day. One thing that I did do is that each day that I started and I would know how far I needed to go, I would always, at a minimum, ride that. There
Mhm.
wasn't a single day where I said I'm going to ride 65 miles today and ended up doing 60 or 55.
Sure.
So I always did what I said I was going to do. And then there were days I went further. I was feeling good. The weather was good. The wind was at my back. I'm like,
Yeah.
I might not get this tomorrow, so let's just keep going, right? So I would go further. Probably the 5th day, I think, on my first day leaving Missoula, going down to Hamilton, Montana. Hamilton was supposed to be my destination, and I think that was going to be 60 miles, and
Mm.
then felt good and ended up going to Darby, which was another 10. So I got a 70-mile day
Wow.
in, which I didn't think I would get that far, have a day like that soon into the ride. So that felt good. That was a good confidence boost day. The most I did in a day was 100 miles, and that was
Just
my second to last day.
a lot.
Um, yeah, it was. But it felt good. I wanted to get a century in during this
Mhm.
because I felt I'm not going to be in any better shape probably ever to ride a century
Right.
than I will be at that point in time. So I decided to do it. And that last week was my hardest week of all of them, despite the climbs through the mountains. And, I did get into some snow in Yellowstone, and that was like a week before the
Oh,
4th of
yeah.
July. And I was just like, this is nuts. There's snow. Yeah, there was a lot of elements to the ride
Yeah.
and things to kind of overcome.
Weather, terrain, climb, all those things.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
weather, wind,
what about like,
animals.
oh my gosh, I didn't even think about animals, but like, what about physically and mentally too? Because this is the first time you've really undertaken a trip like this, right?
There's a lot of mental and physical challenges for sure. I mean, physically, I felt good. There were times the first few weeks or so, whenever you're doing something that repetitive of a motion for that
Mm,
long, you're gonna, if something's off with like the way your bike's set up, you will start to know. You'll
got
feel it in
it.
certain ways.
Yeah.
And the first couple of weeks, I had this pain like behind my knee.
Hmm.
That would just hurt toward the end of the rides. Um, and then the next week it shifted to the other one. And so I thought maybe something's up. So I adjusted my seat and then it went away. So it was just these little kind of adjustments I had to make, and my body would tell me kind of what needed to be adjusted, and I'd tweak it and
Mm.
yeah, and they'd be fine after that. And really didn't, other than some saddle soreness, do a lot of Aquaphor, and chamois butter. I think it used to be called butt butter, but yeah, those were essential items on
Yes.
this trip. But other than that, no injuries,
Wow.
and felt good throughout. But yeah, just a lot of the mental aspect of it. I mean, there
Yeah.
were days where the wind was blowing so hard, especially in Montana. That was the one day that I almost didn't go as far as I said I was going to go because it was just so brutal. And, on a normal day, kind of optimal conditions, flat, I could average 20, 21 miles an hour. This day, I was doing maybe 10,
Oh,
like single
wow.
digits. It was almost like
Just
climbing
taking you
without the
twice
climb.
as long.
Yeah, twice as long. And a climb, at least it's not going to last the entire ride. You're going to go up and then you're going to get to come down, which is a blast. This was just constant. It's just like being on a constant
Mhm.
climb, and you have to go the direction you're going, right? Like you can't just say, okay, I'm going to turn unless you really want to make your ride longer that day. So it was just like kind of just, and it was tough at first because I was kind of wanting to get done and get there. And I liked to see what my average speed was. And it's kind of competitive with myself. And I think that's one of the things that I really had to grapple with. And I knew it going in that I've always kind of had a problem dealing with things I can't control and focusing too much on it instead of what I can control. And so that is really the biggest thing I had to overcome mentally, was just knowing like, hey, I can't control the wind. I can't control the rain. I can't control the animals that might, pop out. I just have to take it and adjust and deal with it. And I just had to start being okay with knowing, hey, this climb or with this wind, it's not going to be fast. I'm going to have to be in the saddle for 5 hours instead of 3.5, right? And just mentally preparing to just kind of buckle down and just say, this is what it's going to be. Just got to keep moving forward. That was kind of a mantra I'd use a lot. Just keep moving forward, keep pedaling, no matter how fast or slow, because it's better than walking, is what I kept telling myself.
Yeah, it sounds like your rides were almost meditative in a way. You had to surrender to whatever the elements were going to bring to you and just be determined to make it to your destination.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it was meditative, especially when I got to Wyoming and South Dakota,
Mm.
and there would be times where I'd be on the road and I would maybe see one or two cars every hour. And it was so much in the middle of nowhere that you could just stop and just listen and you would hear zero human made noise. And it was just
Wow.
what was around you. And it was the wind and the birds and the bugs and everything. And I would just stop and just listen and take it in. I actually have I did take a video in South Dakota at one point, just to kind of show like, this is what I hear. This is what it's like to be out here without any human noise. And it was great.
And so when you made your stops, did you like just find wherever you could bed down for the night, or did you have like like vetted places? Did you camp? What did that look like?
Mm-hmm. A little bit of both. We tried to stay in hotels or cabins or things along the way, especially until I got out of grizzly country, because
Mm,
that was really
yeah.
kind of worrying me a lot, because I knew I was going to be off of busier roads and out in their
Mm,
world, and their range has expanded quite a bit. It's not just Yellowstone, right? It's big portion of Montana, and halfway through my route in Wyoming is where
wow.
they are now, and so that worried me a lot. So I did a lot of research. A friend of mine is a works for the Forest Service in out of Bozeman, and
Mm.
I was just asking him like, "Hey man, have you guys seen anything lately? What's going on? Like, what are their patterns? Like, tell me like when I should and shouldn't be on my bike and what I need to worry about." And so that was probably a little irrational um, fear, but yeah, I wanted to get out of grizzly territory before I started to camp. And so as I rode along, and part of kind of raising awareness of youth mental health, besides what I was sharing on social media and trying to do it that way, was I would stop in towns if it was a town that was where I was staying that night or close enough.
Mm.
I would reach out to the library to see if I could reserve a room. I was able to meet with people in several towns along the
Mm.
way and really wanted to just, I mean, I had a short slide, like maybe two slides, and then a video from Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Anxious Generation, and would kind of just share about my ride up to that point, and then show the video and everything, and then just kind of have a conversation with people. And it was mostly for parents and educators.
Mm.
Um, so they just come and kind of talk about this topic. And it was in a lot of smaller towns throughout the U.S. where there's not a lot of resources. And I
Mm.
just wanted to hear what they're seeing. And a lot of it was just out of curiosity and wanting to understand more about what was going on across the country in these smaller towns that don't have the resources and access to the resources that people in larger cities might have. And so it was really interesting talking with them. Um, in the states that I went through Montana, I went through South Dakota, I went through Wyoming. Those three states are in the top 5 of highest teen suicide rates in the country.
Mm.
And that was really something that I was curious to find out more information on, like, why are those states affected that way more than other states,
Sure.
and I think it was in talking with people, I learned a lot about what's really going on in those states, and it was interesting. And kind of the biggest thing that I learned from that was the parents are kind of struggling with what to do, because it's so different than how we grew up and what we had to deal with. And
Sure.
I didn't have cell phones,
Right.
and I was in elementary school in the 80s, and so it was very different. And so they just don't know what they should be doing, or what they should be looking for, and how to even approach it. And then you've got the collective action thing, which makes it even harder when you've got parents who are giving their kids phones when they're 10, and you
Mm.
don't want to give your kid a phone at 10, but the more kids that have it, your kid starts to be left out. And then you're like, what do I do? How do I approach this? Right. And so I found like that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have in this whole thing, is helping parents to understand what's going on and what they can do, and what's kind of really going on that's causing these things. And that kind of helped change my approach with my
Mm.
nonprofit, and kind of going forward, how I think about some of the programs that I'll build. That it won't just be for kids, but it'll be for adults as well.
Yeah, it sounds like
So,
that was really impactful in crafting the way that you're approaching this nonprofit to be able to meet people where they are and not just make an impact on the youth, but also to help their parents make an impact, it sounds like.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
exactly. And when I got to Indy, and while I was there that week after I got there, I did go to my old high school, and we set up a panel with counselors and things within the schools, and it kind of gave a presentation and talked.
Mm.
And that was kind of my like final kind of meet up with students and parents in the town I grew up in. But prior to that, kind of the last one on the ride was in Cambridge, Illinois, and that was probably one of the best events that I had. A lot of parents and some kids were there, kind of middle school, grade school, and high school, and it was interesting to ask them about the policies in their schools. And some schools are, restricting phones and not allowing
Mm.
phones in schools anymore. And it was interesting to hear the dynamic because their high school still allowed phones, but the younger kids couldn't have them.
Sure.
And I asked the older kids, I'm like, what are your lunches like? Is it quiet or is it kind of buzzing? Is there a lot of activity, a lot of talking? Now that you're out of class and you can talk to your friends? And they said it's pretty quiet. And I'm
Wow.
just like, that is not like my lunch when I
No.
was at school. It was loud. There
Right.
was food probably flying every once in a while. Like it was
Absolutely.
not quiet and calm, right?
Yeah.
And then I asked the younger kids that don't have phones, so what are your lunches like? And they're like, it's loud. And I'm like, I mean, that's a pretty stark difference and pretty easy to know like what the culprit is. Like kids aren't engaging
They're not
anymore. And so
interacting. Yeah.
not at all. And it's
Yeah.
sad.
Or they are, but they're sitting next to each other, texting as a group, right? Because
exactly.
I have
And
seen that
probably
as
keeping
well.
somebody out that's sitting right next to them, right? And they don't have
Right,
to talk. They don't have to engage in conflict
right.
resolution, right?
And that just adds fuel to the fire too, though, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of youth feeling bullied or left out, or and
Mm-hmm.
all of that is so foundational to your identity as an adult too.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to deal with conflict
Hmm.
between peers and other people and getting through it, right?
Yeah.
Face to face. That's a big part of being an adult and
Working.
life. Working
Right.
together, solving
Yeah.
things, getting along, right?
Yeah.
Making things work when you don't see eye to eye. But yeah, so it was interesting to kind of get some kids' perspective
Yeah.
along the way as well. So
Yeah. How do you feel like this ride has changed you? I don't feel like you can go through something like this day after day and not come out just a little different, at least.
mhm. Yeah, the further I've gotten away from it, the more I'm kind of amazed. I don't know if amazed is the right word, but um, that I look back and I can't believe I did that. Like I
Yeah.
can't believe every day I got up and I did
Yeah.
that day after day, and there weren't many days that I just wanted to stay in bed. I was eager to get out and do it, and it was fun. And it was cathartic, and it was
Mhm.
meditative, and it helps. Like being outside, like some of the things that help with mental health are being outside and being active and being in the sun. And I had all of those elements every single day for 2 months, and it was just a good feeling. And so it was really hard. It was really really hard being
But
done,
come back.
coming back,
Yeah.
getting back into the flow of things, not being able to wake up and kind of get going, get outside, feel the sun, feel the wind, have those couple hours with no screens, nothing dinging other than my Garmin to tell me where to turn. And then just a year of planning and a year of this being kind of the purpose and having so much meaning behind it personally, and to go through it for 2 months for 53 days. And then on August 4th, I wake up in my mom's house and it was done. Like it was over. Like that was it. That was hard. I did not expect to feel the way I did.
Yeah.
And I it kind of struggled for about a month after. So like September was kind of tough. August was kind of tough. Almost kind of went back into a little bit of a depression because kind of that purpose was kind of gone. I had my nonprofit, but kind of trying to restoke that really kind of big sense of purpose has been hard. And I talked with a lot of people who had done things like this and asked, how do I prepare? How do I go about the ride? And never asked anybody, what's it like when you're done? Because I just thought you'd feel great. It's like a
Sure.
big accomplishment. Like it's kind of feel on top of the world. And I did not feel that way. I'm
Mm.
feeling that way now as I can reflect and look back. But it's been tough. And I mean, it did change me in, you know, wanting to do more, to make a difference, to, in the RevOps work I'm doing, how can I use that in a way that feels like I'm using the skills, the experience I've built up, but in a meaningful way? Can I work with nonprofits and B Corps and help them? And so that's what I'm kind of trying to do now, is kind of
Great.
pivot my market, my focus, and just find ways to do things that can kind of get that purpose
Yeah.
back, in addition to my nonprofit.
Because that's where this all began, where was just trying to find some sense and meaning and purpose to just your life overall. Sounds
Hmm.
like grief had a pretty strong grip on you, and this is what got you out of that.
Hmm. Yeah, it did. I wrote a book back in 2020,
Mm.
and kind of always felt like that was a warm up, that was practice. And then as I was going through the ride, the idea for the next book kind of started to solidify. And um, so now I'm in the process of very beginning, early stages of writing my second book, and it's going to be about the connection of purpose and meaning and mental health and building resilience, and kind of using what I've gone through as kind of the core understanding. And then I'm doing a lot of reading, a lot of research into depression, into anxiety. I have ADHD that I never knew I had until I got diagnosed with depression, and I was talking to a therapist for the first time in my life. And then a month into that, I would describe something. She's like, that sounds like ADHD. And then a week later, she's like, that sounds like ADHD too. And pretty soon she's like, go to your doctor. I'm pretty sure you have ADHD. And so I did, and I do. Um, so learning more about that, and ADHD and depression are linked as well. There are some things that kind of contribute.
Mhm.
Depression can make your ADHD symptoms kind of exaggerated a little bit. Some of the
Mhm.
ADHD, the way that you have to go through your life in a world that's not built for you, and the way your mind
Absolutely.
works,
Mhm.
can also contribute to depression.
Sure.
And so reading a lot, and that research is also kind of making me learn a lot more about depression, how it works, how mine even really started. And I'm just kind of, and one of the great things about ADHD is we can pull a lot of different things and connect the dots and take all these different things and put it into a cohesive, like, big picture. And that's what I've been able to do. And I've had several light bulb moments of like, okay, this is really what caused my depression. It wasn't those
Mhm.
events; those were the catalyst, but it had been building for years.
Interesting.
And
Yep.
so, learning a lot more about that has been fascinating, and kind of been a big change after the ride of kind of really digging in and learning a lot more. As someone who's gone through it, and someone who's not a psychiatrist, a
Sure.
psychologist, who isn't maybe biased by the things they may have learned, and I'm looking at this from almost a journalistic, but also I have experienced it, I've gone through it.
Yeah. It's that human experience element that brings the concepts to life and makes it more relatable for the people who are going through it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I'm reading I mean, I've got stacks of books, and I'm looking at it as I'm reading these books so you don't have to, and I'm going to like pull it all together so
That's
you don't have
great.
to. And so I'm going to put it in a way that's easy to understand and easy to see the connection that I've made through
Yeah.
this superpower I have, with ADHD. So you don't have to.
Are you going to undertake a ride like this again?
I want to. Um, I mean, I would do it every year if I could take 2 months off,
Yeah, I
every
understand.
year.
Yeah.
As someone who gets bored with the same thing, I wouldn't do the same route because I've done
Mm.
that. And that was part of the fun, is like every day being on a new road I've never been on. in a new part of the country, or seeing parts I've been in, but not from that view, right? It's different than a freeway.
Yeah.
And so I will do it again, I think next year. Right now, preliminarily, I'm thinking about organizing a ride through my nonprofit and kind of hosting a 500-mile ride. It might be less because the route I have is from Sandpoint, Idaho, in northern Idaho, about 2 hours from where I live now, to San Juan Island,
Mm.
in western Washington, and it goes through the Cascades. And there's some pretty gnarly climbs
Mm.
along that route. So it might be like 250, 300 miles in fewer days. But thinking about taking a week at least and doing a ride, hosting it, planning it, and then inviting other people who either have a nonprofit and want to use that week in that ride to raise their own awareness and event to make money, or raise money, or just people who have a cause that's very important to them and they want to do the same thing to raise money and awareness. So that's what I'm trying to pull together right now, and kind of what I'm thinking about doing next year.
Nice.
So
Nice. Any kind of final thoughts or things that you want to leave people with, whether they're kind of finding themselves in a position that you were in the beginning of this ride, or maybe they're where you were when you ended the ride and they've reached a certain goal but now aren't sure what their next steps are? Anything that you want to leave them with?
yeah, I think the biggest thing is when you're going through something like this, and it's been hard for me, is to give yourself grace, because it's really hard, because you almost feel like you're broken, but you're not. Like,
Mm.
and it's hard to really think that it's temporary, that it's just it's not a phase, but it's a rough patch, and it's hard to see that it will get better. But I think the important thing there are some core elements that will help you get through it, right? And I think it is exercise, being in nature, and making connections, being around people. The more you can understand what's happening, the better able you are to kind of understand what's going on, why it's happening, and know that it can be better because this is what's going on, right? I think has helped me have more hope, right? To know, like, hey, coming back and being kind of going back through it again, it doesn't feel hopeless, but it feels like, man, it sucks, like, feeling this way again, but I know why. And I know that I've got to improve some things and kind of get these things back in my life, right?
Mm.
And so I know once I do that, things will start to get better.
Thank you for joining me on the Phoenix Table. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, review, and subscribe, and make sure to share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, we rise better together.